Hello students, this is part 2 of your video series on the major animal phyla. This particular video is about vertebrates. Vertebrates are animals that have a backbone surrounding their spinal cord. The first group of vertebrates are the fish, and there are actually 3 major groups: the jawless fish, the cartilage fish, and the bony fish. Some important parts in the fish are the swim bladder, which helps the fish stay afloat, and the lateral line, which is a sense organ that goes down the side of the fish. It helps to detect vibrations, pressure, and even electrical currents. You've heard of like an electric eel. They actually are able to use their lateral line to generate an electric current instead of just detecting it. We have the Agonatha, which are the jawless fish. Am and non all mean not, and ganatha is from the same root word as to gnaw, like gnawing on a bone. So agonatha literally means, I spelled it wrong. Agonatha literally means without jaws. This group includes lamprey and hagfish. Lamprey get a bad rap in the Great Lakes. There is a parasitic sea lamprey, does not belong in the Great Lakes. It just about wiped out our population of lake trout in Lake Michigan and the rest of the Great Lakes. Real bad news. But we also have native lamprey that do not cause problems for the fish. And then down here we have the hagfish. They're deep sea fish. There are not a lot of different species of jawless fish. There's only about 100 species in the world that are known. Next we go to the cartilage fish. Their fancy name is chondroichthyes. Chondroichthyes includes the sharks, the stingrays, and the skates. They all have skeletons made of cartilage rather than skeletons made of bones, and there are about 850 species found in the world today. Your bony fish, also called osteichthyes, are the most common fish in the world. There are 2 main groups of those: the ray-finned fish, those are very common, they're what you think of when you think of a fish, and the lobe-finned fish, and there are not very many of those. So when you think of fish, you're probably thinking of ray-finned fish in the osteichthyes group. And there are about 29,000 species. Now, when we leave the fish group, we get to the tetrapods, or tetrapoda. Now, tetrapoda is not a technical term in the sense that it's not a phylum, it's not a class, it's not an order, but it is used for all of the rest of the vertebrates. It applies to even vertebrates that don't have 4 feet, like snakes. Basically, this group includes all vertebrates except for the fish. The first group are the amphibians. They come from the root words amphi and bio, which mean double, and life. Usually these guys live in the water and breathe with gills when they're babies, and when they grow up, they move on to land and breathe with lungs. There are 3 main groups: the Anurans, the Caudatans, and the Apodans. The Anurans, am, and non means not, and ura means tail. So Anurans means tailless. There are about 5,000 species of them, and they are known for their mating calls. These are your frogs and your toads. Next, we have the Caudatans. Cauda is the Latin word for tail. These guys do not make any noise, and there are about 5,000 species of them, and we think of them as salamanders, newts, mud puppies, things like that. We have several species in Michigan. Most of them are very small, such as this one that Chris is holding in the picture. And then here are the real weirdos of the amphibians, the apodans. A means, am, and non all mean not, and pedpod means foot. Apoda means no feet. They're also called the Sicilians. There are about 120 species known, and they are sometimes mistaken for worms, but they're not a worm because they have a backbone. They have a spinal cord. I don't know what their babies look like, but they might have tadpole-like babies. Don't quote me on that. They are an amphibian. Next, we move on to the reptiles. They have scales. Most lay eggs on land, but there are some viviparous ones that give live birth. And there are 3 major groups of reptiles. Squamata includes snakes and lizards. Crocodilia includes your crocodiles, alligators, things like that. And the Testudines includes your turtles. Here are just a few sample pictures of Squamata. So you have a Komodo dragon. You have a sea iguana from the Galapagos Islands. You have a garter snake. And maybe another garter snake. And maybe another garter snake. Lots of garter snakes. Next, you have your Crocodilia. So this includes your Garriles, which are these alligator-looking things with really narrow noses. Your American alligators, your American crocodiles, and other crocodiles from all over the world, such as the Nile crocodile, the saltwater crocodile, etc. Next, we have the Testudines. There are two major groups of Testudines. You have your terrestrial ones, which are your tortoises. They are primarily herbivores, and they do not swim. And then you have your aquatic ones. You have your sea turtles and your terrapins. And terrapins are the turtles that you usually think of. Terrapins are the turtles you might find here in Michigan. They spend a lot of their time in the water, but they come out on land fairly frequently as well. Turtles have two shells. The carapace is the top shell, and the plastron is the bottom shell. And they are part of their skeletal system. A turtle cannot come out of its shell. So here's the carapace of a painted turtle and the plastron of the same painted turtle. The scutes are these scales, and you can see there's like lines on them. They're kind of like tree rings. You can help to tell the age of a turtle by counting the scutes. I'm not very good at it. And the smaller the plastron, the more aggressive the turtle is. So painted turtles, very calm. Their plastron covers the whole bottom of their body. Snapping turtles, very small plastron. Then they are Mr. Grumpy Pantses. Next, we have class Aves, which are the birds. They all have feathers. They all lay eggs. And most are designed for flight. There are a few that don't fly, such as the penguin and the ostrich and the kiwi bird. You can see here that this particular bird, the skua or jagger, is attempting to eat the eggs of this penguin. And he says, "Leave my babies alone." You can see this nest here. There's 5 eggs and one that is not like the other. This is called nest parasitism, where one bird drops its eggs in another bird's nests. And it leads to very interesting situations, such as this young cuckoo, which is being fed by, I don't know if that's a wren or a flycatcher, but this is the foster mom, and the baby is a monstrosity in her nest. But she loves it all the same. Birds have different digestive systems than you and I. So here you can see that birds have a crop, which leads to a very muscular gizzard. So they don't have a stomach, and then their intestines are much shorter. So birds have a bunch of strange modifications that are designed for flight. They also have hollow bones. And then there's a variety of different feet and beaks. And then we move on to the fun ones, the mammals. Okay, what makes a mammal a mammal? It's milk production in the mammary glands. Don't ever tell me that it's the fur or hair that makes a mammal, because that is the second best answer. The best answer is that all mammals make milk. Mammals are named because of their mammary glands. Oh, look, another spelling mistake. And most have live birth, but not all. So you can see a mommy kitty feeding her kittens, and you can see a mama seal with her baby, and you can see a mama orca feeding her baby. Now, your first group of mammals are the weirdos, the monotremes. Mono means one. Monotremes have one opening for all their business. Their reproductive, sexual, and excretory functions all exit through the same opening. There are not very many monotremes. They are your egg-laying mammals. You have your duck-billed platypus and your spiny anteaters, also called echidnas. Next, you have the marsupials. Marsupials are the ones with pouches. The babies are born after a very, very, very short pregnancy, a very short gestation. For example, the American opossum, or the Virginia opossum, only is pregnant for 13 days. And then she gives birth to these tiny hairless pups who then find a nipple and latch onto a nipple and grow up in her pouch, not her uterus. The opossum is our only North American marsupial. We think of marsupials, you're more likely to think of kangaroos and all their relatives down in Australia. Good day, mate. And finally, the biggest, the most common group of mammals are called the Eutherians, or the Placentals. And why are they called placentals? Because in the uterus, the embryo generates an organ called the placenta. And the placenta is the part of the baby that interacts with the mother, in the sense that that's where the nutrients from the mother are given to the baby, the oxygen from the mother are given to the baby's wastes are given to the mother and returned to the mother's bloodstream so she can get rid of them. So the placenta is part of the baby, and it grows and attaches the inside of the mother's uterus. That is the norm for mammals, but the monotremes and the marsupials don't have that. So we have interesting things like bats. They are Eutherians, placental mammals. We have elephants. Remember, they don't forget. You have shrews, which look like rodents, but aren't really. And kitty cats that are very, very serious. Anyways, so here was your video about vertebrates. And if you're very, very lucky, I may actually put together video number 3, which would go into detail about the Eutherians, the placental mammals, because there's a lot of interesting things there. And they're what we think of when we think of animals. And I've done 2 videos so far about animals. And this is the first time you've seen anything that you might actually think of as, hey, look, that's an animal. All right, see you next time.